What up, FIFA Tears? We are the FSB creators and we are back with Extra Time. Now, this is a follow-on from this week's episode, so if you haven't already listened to that, then go back and have a listen. And on today's episode, we will basically be addressing the UCL group stages and our predictions for the groups, and then also addressing your questions as well. So thank you for submitting those. And when I say we, obviously I mean my fellow creators, LAJS and Mersgoth. How you doing, buddies?
Not too bad, not too bad.
Yeah, I'm doing fairly well, mate. Especially after that group stage.
Yeah, it's you've got a definitely one of the better looking draws in this, not gonna lie. So let's crack on. We're not gonna go through these too in depth, guys, because this will end up being like a 2-hour podcast, and we don't need to talk about fixtures and things. We're just simply going to go through our predictions and why, maybe touch on a couple of the unexpected teams that we think might make it out of the group. So, Group A, first of all, Ajax, Liverpool, Napoli, Rangers. I feel a little bit sorry for Rangers here. They did their sort of turned around a deficit and did really well to get out of the qualifying stages against PSV, and then find themselves in a group with not only the best Dutch team in the league with Ajax, but also arguably one of the two best teams in the Premier League, and Napoli as well. So for me personally, I don't see them getting out of this group. I would have Liverpool first in this. Then it's going to be tight, I think, between Ajax and Napoli. Ajax are a tough team in the Champions League. I've always proven that. I know they're losing a lot of their kind of star players, but they always seem to do well. But I don't know a lot about Napoli this year, so I'll stick with saying I think probably Liverpool and then Ajax and then Napoli, then Rangers.
I would say Ajax are definitely going through. I can't say that it's a close one between them and Napoli. Napoli have lost Koulibaly, they've lost Insigne, I think they've lost Mertens. I think they tried to re-sign him. I don't think they were successful. I think he's gone to the Turkish league now. So their team is, except for maybe Uzman, it's pretty much like a questionable sort of team. I think they're still doing reasonably well in Serie A, but I think it's going to be Liverpool, Ajax, Napoli, Rangers.
I'm going to buck the trend. I'm going to go with the Napoli pick here. We mentioned teams losing players. Ajax are like hemorrhaging players. They've lost Gravenberch, they've lost Tagliafico, they've lost Anthony now. They're losing players left and right, not just Napoli. So, lauding them in the same vein, I'm looking at some of the players that have been brought in by Napoli as well. They've brought in Ndombele, who can be an absolute unit on his day and in the Italian league. And I think against certain sides, can absolutely put on a beautiful display. Simeone, coming in from Verona. He's on loan, I believe.
Yeah.
So he's there now. Raspadori's come in. They've got a few players that have come through the door that I reckon are going to replace that firepower. Because we talk about Mertens leaving, we talk about Insigne leaving. We forget that they're well into their 30s at this point. They needed replacing. Koulibaly is the main hole I don't think they've properly filled. Or at least they might have, I just don't recognise it on here. They brought in Kim Min Jae.
Top of the league currently, but only on goal difference. There's actually the top 6 all have 7 points in Serie A, so no team has actually won all 3 games there at the moment. So hard to tell. I mean, they are only 3 games into their season, but unfortunately for Rangers, I think this is as far as they go. We seem all agreed on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that is a shame because, like I say, hard fought to get into this stage. They should commend themselves for that, but they just found themselves in an unfortunate group.
The thing is, with that group as well, the draw would be wildly different if Rangers didn't get through, because that would have been PSV and they couldn't have been in that pot.
They couldn't have been in the group with Ajax.
So it would have been a very
true.
different draw. Could have affected people there.
Well, yeah, because then say, like, for instance, they did find themselves in your group. They could have, they could have been potentially looking at trying to break into the second there, the second spot there. But we'll get to Group D in a second. Let's go to Group B. Porto, Athletico Madrid, Leverkusen and Club Brugge. Now, for me, I think this one almost kind of makes itself, but you guys may disagree. I think Atletico Madrid will top that group with Bayer Leverkusen coming second, Porto behind, and Club Brugge dead last.
I wouldn't say it makes itself. It's not as one trick as it seems. You got to remember Porto seem to always just sneak through into the round of 16 because, I mean, how else are Liverpool going to play against them? They always play against them.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
It's always in the round of 16 or the quarterfinals. They seem to always sneak through. So underestimate Porto at your might. They could easily still get out of this group.
I feel like I want to be a bit like controversial or different with this one. I feel like maybe Leverkusen top, Porto second, and Atletico Madrid third.
I can
Really?
get that. After last year, I can get that. Because didn't Atletico Madrid and Porto get in the same group last year? And there was the pitch fight.
But
Actually, yeah, they might have done.
Was that or was that knockout stages?
No, that was definitely group stage.
Okay.
Porto went into the Europa League, I'm pretty certain, last year. And I think it was as a result of that.
Yeah, you might be
there'll be
right.
some heated rivalry there then. So that could spur on Porto. And at the end of the day, Madrid and partially their negative brand of football, we're like obviously only going for the 1-0s and stuff, like could cost them a few points in the groups. And also Club Brugge as well. I wouldn't say necessarily they're an absolute pushovers themselves. Like obviously they're probably going to be the whipping boys of the group, but I think they'll probably get a surprise result between the other three teams.
Yeah.
They managed to get a result against PSG last year, didn't they? Club Brugge? Or was it the year before?
Oh yeah, I do
one of the
remember
years they
that.
got a
They
result
did, didn't
against-
they? Yeah, they did. Yeah.
So
I
who
mean, we
knows?
haven't seen much of Atletico Madrid in this season so far. They are sitting 12th in the league. 2 games played. They actually play tonight as we're recording this at 9 o'clock. So they lost 2-0 at home to Villarreal and then beat Getafe 3-0 away. So not still to be said, only 2 games in for them into the La Liga season. So not a lot known at this stage, but this is what I mean. Our predictions are as they are, but we know there's always upsets in the Champions League. Now we come on to what I think potentially is the most interesting group. There are a couple others that have got some big picks, but this one, mainly because of a team that we have we have slated them, but right, deservedly so. We've got Bayern Munich, Barcelona, Inter Milan, and Victoria Plzen. Now, I can almost say for sure that Victoria Plzen stay bottom of this group. And then we've got Inter Barca and Bayern. Now, we said, I mean, if I had, if I had my way of choosing this group, then I'd have Barca finishing bottom. But I'm obviously not going to be able to, and it doesn't seem like they will, because they're still doing enough with the side they've got, despite what they're doing to their players. Do they get out of this group though?
In some shape or form, yes. And as much as I really, really want to sort of twist the dagger and say that Inter don't have the best history recently. I know that's mainly because of Antonio Conte, but they don't have the best record in the Champions League recently. I think they got out the groups and I think they might have lost to Liverpool in around 16 last year. So that's a very tough draw losing to finalists. But
Yep.
Barcelona brought in so many players and such good players at that it's hard to go against them. As much as I want to, I'm going to say, yeah, it's going to be Bayern and Barca going through. I think it's going to stay exactly as it was with the hot order.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it just boils down to what that Barcelona and Inter Milan head-to-head results are. Like, if Inter Milan get the result against Barcelona, then obviously it's going to be Inter coming second. But then, but I would probably agree. I think it is as you will see it on screen, which is Bayern, Barca, Inter, and Victoria.
I can see that. I think for me, like, no mistaking Bayern Munich win this group. Just I think anyway for like as a force, as a team anyway. Generally at the moment they seem to just be hitting the ground running, especially with their new signings. But I think, given like you say the state of Barca and also Inter at the moment, I think I can see them just getting through there as top. I'm gonna go and pick Inter for being second, just because I really don't want Barcelona to get out of the group. But that is no other reason than just for what has happened so far with what they've done with players in their team. Then the group that affects you the most here, Luke, so that is Group D with Eintracht Frankfurt, Tottenham, Sporting Lisbon and Marseille. Now I think anybody can get second in this group, but I actually do think you'll come out on top. Marseille I watched play Nice and went 3-0 up very, very quickly. Kasper Schmeichel took an absolute pasting from their forwards. Based on that alone, I'm going to say Tottenham, Marseille, Frankfurt and Sporting for me.
I think I agree with you entirely. Marseille have brought in some good players. They've lost Saliba from their defence. The one thing that sticks out to me as worrying from Marseille is something that happened in pre-season. So you can take it with a pinch of salt, but didn't Norwich knock them for free? Was
Yes.
it Marseille that got knocked for free? I think so. That's the only blip I can see. Like Frankfurt got rid of Kostic, who was quite talismanic almost. He left for about 10 mil, I think, to Juve. So Sporting, they lost Matthias Nunes to Wolves. That's the only sort of thing I know about them. I'm not going to pretend to be a world expert. So I think it's going to be Tottenham, Marseille, Frankfurt, Sporting. But Spurs could easily choke this. Conte's not good in the Champions League. I wouldn't be surprised if Spurs finish second or even third. I wouldn't be.
I just feel like you've made moves this year, and I think those moves will pay off.
Whilst true, Conte's won, and bear in mind it's to Inter and I believe even at Chelsea, 3 out of his last 15 games in the Champions League. 3. That can't be overlooked here. As much as we're saying Spurs to finish top, it could easily be third in the group. Easily.
Yeah, I get that. I get your possible scepticism. Let's call it that.
Especially when it's Tottenham.
Mers?
I'm actually going to say Frankfurt comes top, Tottenham comes second, Marseille comes third, and Sporting comes come last. I think Frankfurt in the Bundesliga at the moment, the way they've started the season, they've actually had some good results and stuff.
Okay.
I think they've even come up against some of the bigger clubs, and I think they came up against a big club this season. I think they've also played Dortmund.
Leipzig.
I'm going to just double check.
I thought they played Leipzig.
Leipzig was one, yeah. Let's have a look. So they played Werder Bremen and won 4-3.
So Werder Bremen were newly promoted that year, I think.
Yeah, I believe so. They got relegated, then came back up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they've had a couple of draws actually. Okay, maybe not quite as what I've thought.
You might be thinking of someone like
you
might be thinking of someone like
Borussia Mönchengladbach. I know.
They got a result
Union
against
Berlin. I
they
know
got a result
Union
against Bayern
Berlin.
recently did Mönchengladbach.
Yeah.
They're their bogey team. I don't really know that. I think Bayern have only won 2 out of something like the last 8 against Mönchengladbach.
But that's because of Jan Sommer.
Jan Sommer loves him.
Yeah, basically.
He loves it.
The kryptonite. Because I put a bet on Bayern to win this weekend, and they absolutely dominated Gladbach. And they had about 20 shots on target, and Sommer had at least 15 saves or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, it was absolutely crazy.
The reason that guy always gets informs.
It's because he plays Bayern twice a year.
Yeah. Then we go to Group E. I think, to me, this group again kind of decides itself potentially, with the exception of which way round the top 2 come and which way round the bottom 2 come for me. But yeah, it's Milan, Chelsea, Salzburg, and Dynamo Zagreb. I pretty much see that being exactly that, with maybe the bottom two being either way round. So Milan top in the group, Chelsea second, Salzburg third, and Zagreb fourth, or vice versa for me there.
I think Salzburg will come third. I don't think there's any doubts about it, because I think like the way that they've got their youth system set up, obviously they seem to be producing so many decent like young players. Like they seem to be doing pretty well, and you just got to look at the last few seasons in Europe. Like, okay, they haven't been able to get into the later stages of Champions League or anything like that, but they certainly can get and put on entertaining games and get a few results here and there.
They even got out the groups last year at Barcelona's expense. Did Salzburg, so...
Yeah. But do we think any surprises there at the top two?
And I'm backing Chelsea at the top, though. I don't think... AC Milan have got a decent side, but they've lost Kessie. I don't know too much about their replacements. I know they brought in De Ketelaere from Bruges, but apart from that, I don't know too much about them. So I don't see it. I see Chelsea, as I said, getting quite far in the Champions League the other week, and I think this is the kind of group that they can top and then play a team that came second from one of the other groups. Say, in my opinion, maybe a Porto from Group B, and then they keep progressing little by little.
I just don't think so. I just think if I put these in, say, the group with Ajax, Liverpool, Napoli, so say they replace Liverpool in that group, I think Napoli and Ajax put Chelsea third. If you put them in the group with Bayern, Barca, and Inter in replace for...
It would be Barca. They'd have been in.
But yeah, for Barca, then I think Bayern, Inter, and Chelsea come third again. I just think they're going to struggle in the Champions League. I think they're fortunate to find themselves in this group, and then I think they'll lose in the round of 16.
I think they'll face an easier side in the next round. They'll top the group. They'll at least get quarterfinals. I said they'll get semi-finals. I think a group like this gives my little prediction from a couple of weeks ago a bit more leverage.
Mez?
I think it's Milan, Chelsea, personally. I think it's Milan coming top. I think, yeah, okay, Chelsea probably could maybe sneakily edge it with the head-to-head results with Milan. But, again, it's just like that attack side of the situation. I think at the moment, they're very heavily fixated on the defence. They are trying to look at getting a striker, and they're looking at, like, Aubameyang, for instance. But I just don't think it's enough. I just don't think it's enough to, edge out Milan, personally.
No, I definitely don't think they'll edge out Milan. I don't even think they've got enough to get past this point afterwards, though. I think that once they start coming up against, the potential likes of what we're saying, so far, Tottenham, Frankfurt, or
They
Tottenham,
can't play
Marseille.
Tottenham. They can't play Tottenham at that point.
I can't play Tottenham at that point. So say Marseille,
Barcelona in my
Barcelona,
one, Porto,
Inter.
Napoli.
Yeah, I just don't see them beating any of those sides at the moment. I just think they're in trouble. Yeah, they do need a striker, but I don't think that's necessarily going to solve all their problems there. Group F, Real Madrid, Leipzig, Shakhtar Donetsk, and then Celtic. I think probably that, again, for me, is the order other than the bottom two. I think Celtic may be over Shakhtar Donetsk, but I think Real Madrid and Leipzig will be the top two of that group, with Real Madrid edging it, and I do fancy them to still get to the semis this year, where I think Man City will just get their just desserts against them and actually knock them out this year. But yeah, that will be seen obviously later on into the year. But yeah, Real Madrid and Leipzig to be top two for me.
Yeah, I think Leipzig will get through 100%. It'll be Real Madrid, Leipzig, and I agree with the Celtic and Shakhtar. Shakhtar obviously going through tough times, not getting much game time due to the ongoing situation, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And
I imagine most of their games will be played at different stadium.
You'd believe so. They wouldn't have the home advantage. It's going to be difficult for them in that respect, especially when they're losing players. I know Neres moved on, and I don't know who else has moved on, but you'd assume some others have.
I agree. I think maybe Celtic could get a draw against Leipzig at home, but like when they go away to Leipzig, Leipzig's going to get the win. Real Madrid's probably going to get 6 points off the Celtic, and then obviously 7 points does sound like a good amount of points to try and get second or something like that. But the fact that Leipzig are clearly then going to have 10 points, so they are going to have second place. So yeah, it's basically as you guys have put it.
Group G again, sort of not difficult, I think, necessarily for Man City, but I think difficult for second place here. We've got Man City, Sevilla, Dortmund, and Copenhagen. So unfortunately for Copenhagen, they found themselves in a extremely difficult group. I fancy Man City to come out on top, and then I think it's going to be down to the head-to-head between Sevilla and Dortmund for me. And I think Dortmund just maybe have a little bit more about them. They've got Sula back this year, haven't they? So I think Dortmund will edge out Sevilla over the two fixtures, and they'll come second.
Yeah, I think Dortmund do come second and Sevilla third. But the main problem you see with Sevilla is that they've sold their two centre backs. They sold Diego Carlos. They've sold Koundé, and seemingly they've replaced it with Marçal, the guy from Galatasaray, and Nianzou from Bayern Munich. From what I'm seeing here on Transfermarkt, not a clue about them. They brought in Tellez and Isco on free transfers and loans, but it's not anything special. So I with how Dortmund have reinvested and brought in free transfers and Sula, Schlotterbeck, just centre backs alone, but they've reinvested in the club. I can see it only going well for them in terms of second in the group.
Yeah, same.
I agree, and the problem is that I would also say with Dortmund a little bit, which can be, I guess, with the game against Sevilla especially, is although they're very good offensively, they are very sus when it comes to defensiveness. I mean, even with the fact that they brought in Sule and Slotterbeck for like defensive cover and options, they still like give up good goal leads. Like I think it was a couple weeks ago they were 2-0 up in the league, and then they ended up like losing 3-2. Yeah, so,
in 6 minutes, I believe it was as well. Last 6 minutes of the match.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So as long as they don't have a defensive collapse, they will comfortably get the second place. But if they do, and Sevilla somehow can get like 3 points against Dortmund, I think Sevilla could pip them to that second place.
Yeah, I can understand where you're coming from there. Next group, I think again a fairly, I'll say final group to decide there. Fairly straightforward in my opinion. We've got PSG, Juventus, Benfica, and Maccabi Haifa. For me, in the exact order that I've just read it, is how that group finishes. I think PSG have just got a little bit too much class on the pitch. Juventus, aging side still, and have lost some players this year. So I think they'll come second. Still probably outperform Benfica. Although it could be close. Benfica could be the surprise there to maybe take second. Who knows?
You've read my mind. That's exactly what I'm going to say. I've not said too many shock ones, so I'll go with the Benfica to qualify at Juventus's expense.
I can get on board with that. Like I could definitely see that being the one. Like you say, not necessarily a shock, just a kind of result from circumstances where Juventus have got an aging side and are not quite the force they used to be.
I don't think they are quite as much of an aging squad as you're saying.
They've been reinvesting. Because
you've got
definitely.
They obviously I know they've sold De Ligt, which is obviously quite a young player, but then they brought in Bremer, who's not exactly an old player.
I did notice them play the other day though, and they've still got Bonucci at centre back.
Yeah, obviously they're going to have him because obviously with the fact that they got rid of Delict. Otherwise, if they had kept Delict and managed to get Bremer, but I think it was the Delict money that brought Bremer at the end of the day, so that was never going to happen. But yeah, it's a work in progress, right? You can't do like a Chelsea sort of situation and maybe just like go too crazy with changing up the defense in one sort of like hit. I think you got to do it gradually, because otherwise you got to get them to gel as well, the partnership. So
Yeah.
you got to get Bremer used to it, and then get a new partner for Bremer, and then that's when it's the defense for like a good like amount of years to come.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can see that. And I mean, you know, guys, at the end of the day, these are only our predictions based on the group stats. Obviously, leading into this, other things factor in, like form, injuries, and everything else, and as well as fixtures that they've got coming up in and around that. We know that a lot of these will probably be playing 2-game weeks, and they might have, you know, very important league games. So everything obviously is all subject to change. They are only predictions, but let us know yours down in the comments over on YouTube, or get over onto our Twitter pages and let us know what you think about our predictions, and send some of yours our way. Talking about sending some of your things our way, we have our questions presented to us. Now, one of them, two of the questions do kind of tie into each other, but one of them has another question, so I'll come to that in a second. But actually what we'll start with is our good old friend GH, and we'll start with his question. So he's asked us, what is our most underrated film and also a TV show that we would want to be in? Now, have you guys seen this question? Had any thoughts about your answers on this already, or shall I lead the way?
You lead the way. I did not read this at all, so
Okay,
lead the way.
Spot.
I feel like I want to just also reiterate one small part of the TV show. So he put, if you had to be in a TV show, what would you pick? Like Peppa Pig, SpongeBob, etc.
What's
No.
a kids show basically?
Well, so this is
Right.
this is now the thing, right? So he has said those two shows. Now either that's because there is two favourite shows, or he means children's TV shows. So I will give you the option to say both. If you're going to be a voiceover part or anything in a essentially a children's TV show, and also feature in a TV series of your own as well. So I'll go first of all with my underrated film of all time, and I'm going to go with In Time. If you guys are not familiar with that film or don't know that film, it is a film with Justin Timberlake in. He is the main character in the film and co-starred, I believe, I know Olivia Wilde's in it as his mum. I can't remember who the girl who plays opposite him as his like love interest is. Let's find her. I know she's Amanda Seyfried. That's the one. Yeah, I couldn't remember her name for a second. Cillian Murphy's in it as well. So some big names, and this film is, in my opinion, so underrated for all the reasons. The storyline, the idea around it, if you're not familiar with this film, the concept is that instead of age, essentially, as being the way that you go from birth to death, you have a clock on your arm, or a timer on your arm, and when that timer counts down to 0, you are dead, and you earn time by working or doing all these things, and that's kind of how life is in this film, and the concept of it I think is fantastic. And honestly, this film, massively underrated, and I would recommend anybody to go and check it out if you haven't seen it. TV shows for me, I would say, right, children's TV shows, and I'm going to be a little bit naughty because it's not as much of a children's TV show, but it's so iconic. I'd love to have a little voice part on Simpsons. I think that would be pretty cool. And in terms of an actual TV show, if they were going to make another series of it, I'd like to feature in Daredevil, because as I did allude to in a previous episode of our podcast, I do really love that as a Marvel series goes. But I've always been, if they could do another rerun, I've always followed and was a massive fan of Friends. So I think a bit part in Friends for me would be my all-time thing. If they ever did another reunion episode or stuff like that, that would be that.
Okay. well, good news for you. Daredevil is returning because he's coming to Disney Plus because he's back in the MCU basically. So it is returning. If you want to audition for a cameo or something like that,
I'll get myself down there.
yeah, basically. Now, looking at In Time on Rotten Tomatoes, you definitely seem to be in that. Well, it is a majority, but it's only just a majority. It's only got an audience score of 51%. So, if it's underrated, you're definitely one of the very few amount of people that are definitely appreciating that film.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's brilliant. It is very good. Like, honestly. Yeah, if you, like I say, if you guys haven't seen it, concept alone is fantastic, but yeah, you just need to go and watch it. There's some very good parts in it, very good chase scenes, very good sort of intense moments and things and that based on the concept. Specifically a bit where he's playing poker using currency of his life, his time as currency in a poker game. So it's just, yeah, you need to go and watch it. It's very good.
Okay, so in terms of, I don't know if this is considered underrated because I think it is quite a popular film within the fan base, or especially those of comics and stuff like that. V for Vendetta.
Oh, I thought that was really good.
Yeah, that's a problem. I don't know if it can be classed as underrated because those that do watch it, and the fact that I think on Rotten Tomatoes it has got a high score as well. I'm just trying to see because I think that's the best way to probably gauge whether it's considered underrated is when the score's quite low. But yeah, it's got a 90% audience score, so yeah, it's probably not considered underrated. But I do think that is definitely a great film and definitely a film worth watching for those that haven't watched it. As for appearing on a kids' TV show, I guess if it's a voice thing, I probably would like to do Pokemon.
Yeah, I could
would
see
be
that.
a good one. As for like a live action TV show or something like that, I guess maybe the House of Dragons. I guess for the spin-off of Game of Thrones, do Ed Sheeran and have a cameo on it or something.
I felt like I knew that was going to come up tonight, that someone would say House of Dragons. My question is for you, if you were going to be a voice in a Pokemon, are you going to be a character or are you going to be a Pokemon?
I feel like I want to be a trainer. You know, I've got to be going up against Ash Ketchum.
Okay.
I can't really think of a film. I don't watch too many films, is what I will say, so it's hard for me to say an underrated one. But I think my answer because what you guys are forgetting here is you're talking about being cameos and something like that. I don't think he means specifically maybe as an acting role. Maybe even like it actually being in it as a character. So I thought more deeper as like, I don't want to say anything like House of Dragons because you could die horrifically or anything like that. I thought of it more on the, well, surely you just pick like a mid-2000s Nickelodeon or something like an iCarly or a Victorious or something. Like something would be interesting. So being on a web series constantly or in Victorious' case, being like a proper talented music place, it would be interesting in that respect. So I've looked at this question from a completely different perspective to you guys of rather than what would be cool to actually feature in if it was IRL. Like I'm going as a literally if you're in this sort of a thing. But as for underrated films, I actually can't think of anything off the top of my head. Like I'm trying to think of films that I properly enjoyed, something like The Dictator. That's probably not got the highest score, but it was generally really funny, in my opinion, and stuff like that. So I guess The Dictator would be mine.
I mean, I certainly remember it for being controversial when it came out, and there was a lot of attempts to get it banned, wasn't there?
Score-wise, it's 44%, so it's got the lowest score.
I'll take that.
There you go.
Yeah. Dictator's where I'm going to go with that then.
Okay. So we hope that sort of answered your question, GH. Thank you for submitting another interesting question to us. In terms of the kids shows, mate, there are other platforms and things available if you do want to watch something a little bit different. It's entirely up to you. So let's go for the next question, which so this is the one, we'll take the first part and then I'll explain where it's kind of like a double header. So Elmo over on Twitter asked us, what do you think about the rewards right now in FUT Champs? Personally, I think it's dead with them not updating it. So at this point, and I don't know if I've said this previously, but I only play FUT Champs until we get to Ultimate Tots. Once that has passed, I no longer play FUT Champs. I don't need that sort of competitiveness, stress, etc. in my life at that stage. So that is where I stopped playing. But yes, from what I have heard, the rewards are not in keeping as to where we are at in the FIFA cycle. So I do think maybe that is something they could improve on. Maybe they need to be a little bit better. Maybe they could, even if they're not going to change the way picks and things work, maybe they could up the packs to start giving out some of these like 85 times 5s and things like that, just to help again with these SBCs. I mean, they're prepared to give them out for doing a bronze team warm-up SBC, so why not reward you for playing 30 games of FUT Champs, you know? So yeah, I do think it is below the curve. You guys, are you playing Champs still, Mers?
A little bit, but not quite as much. I'll probably play one more FUT Champs before FIFA 23 comes out. However, I would just like to argue and say, if you make the FUT Champ rewards too OP, people's expectations come FIFA 23 will be set way too high, because they see what you're getting this stage of FIFA. Even though it is this stage of FIFA, they'll still go, oh, but you could get, like, look, you could get free ultimate packs for getting 9 wins. You could get given free player picks that were minimum 94 rated. You could get this. Why can't they do something similar-ish at the beginning of FIFA 23? But you can't, because otherwise, yeah, it's setting too much of a precedent. And you're seeing this with like the 85 pluses, because of like last year them releasing it, and people's expectations have just been, give it to us, give it to us, give it to us, and then it just becomes like literal moaning, like EA can't win. They give it to you, then suddenly you want more, and then suddenly you want more, and you want more, and you want more, and you want more, and EA have to have a limit to how much they can give us, because otherwise it would just kill off the game way too quickly, way too easily. So yeah, I haven't really got complaints with the FUT Champs rewards personally.
Me neither. Similar reason. People are just way too expectant these days. Like, they just need to curb it in.
Yeah, I agree. I just think that when they know that the game is completely at the end of the cycle, like we are at now, I don't see any harm in it. In terms of people's expectations going into FIFA 23, I'd like to think that everybody's realises that when you restart a new game, you do start back to just getting 2 rare gold packs for things. But, you know, maybe some people don't, and they are a little bit ahead of themselves, coming straight off doing repeatable 85 times 10 SBCs, maybe. But yeah, they should realise that when you start again, you know, you're going to complete an SBC for a premium gold pack. That just is how it is at the start of FIFA.
I mean, things have naturally developed with expectations of people suddenly. We got to a point this year where if there's a day without content, it's seen as dead, when previously you could go a week without content, or even a couple of days without content and be fine. But now, because things like footies exist, because things like shapeshifters existed earlier on in the cycle, you'll get a complaint of, oh, Tuesday, nothing's happened, non-tent, hashtag non-tent.
Yeah.
Like, just curb it in. Stuff progressively gets released more often.
And we did say it, didn't we? I know around the start of this year, or certainly as we got towards November time, December time, we said that like we could feel the fact that they knew it was coming towards the end of this era of FIFA Ultimate Team, and we could see that they were going to absolutely just pump out promo after promo to do their best to capitalise monetary wise on this FIFA, and I don't doubt that this will be one of their biggest years for profit at all. The other question that was as part of this same question from Elmo. So this said, secondly, as you 3 are content creators, is it hard to keep going given that FIFA is near the end of its cycle? Now, this other question that we had by a group called Nothing But a Foot Thing podcast. So I guess another group that do a podcast. Say, what do you do to keep the game fresh at this point in the year? So kind of like they do tie into the same thing, because for me, certainly doing content, it is literally the only thing I have time to do. So I don't play this game socially or in a friendly way. If I'm jumping on anything now in a friendly way, and it is purely for me because actually the people I play with on the console are on Xbox, I actually play cross-gen games such as Modern Warfare, or I go and play PUBG or something like that. So I don't actually play this socially. I do this purely for content. That is just because of how my job works, having a family, all that sort of stuff. So for me at the moment, where they talk about, is it hard to keep going given that it's near the end of the cycle? For me, no, because the only time I get off anyway is my time to be able to do a video. So I'm managing to get out maybe one, maybe two a week at the moment, which is generally no different to how I would do during the rest of the year. The only sort of difference is maybe the shorts at the moment. I feel like doing the YouTube shorts when new promos were coming out were quite good for the channels, but right now 85 times 10s, with so many people seeing them and so many people are doing them now, that I feel like they just get lost in the ether a little bit. So you're just, it's just a case of repeating what everybody else is doing the same, whereas at least sometimes with certain promos and certain ideas you can differentiate your content with somebody else. At the moment, not so easy. I am going to be doing some features on the new moments cards, but again, at this point, so is everybody else. So in the other part of what do I do to keep this game fresh at this point in the year, for me it's not about fresh. I just react off what EA are doing. So at the moment, I'm now sitting here recycling 85 times 10s, as I imagine a lot of people are, to try and get myself the best players I can. What that does mean is that I'll then, for me, they have kept it fresh for me in the sense that I'm looking at this objective for the moments cards and seeing that we can use the new Manchester City Haaland, the new PSG Renato Sanchez, the new Chelsea cards, or the when you think of footies like Mason Mount, Reece James's Chelsea cards, Rudiger's Real Madrid card, etc. in the Kickstart 2 objective. So that for me is like a way of keeping it fresh. It's giving me a chance to use the players that I've got in the 85 times 10 that are very good players, and also some of the SBC players that I've done through fodder, and that is the only way FIFA is fresh for me at the moment. Other than that, we are at the end of the game. The game is tailing off, ready for FIFA 23.
Maz?
I mean, for me, like, generally speaking, as long as there's content, I think that it's fine in terms of keeping it fresh, because trying out new players and stuff like that. In terms of maybe like from the streaming side of things, I think it's just like maybe just going away from FUT. So like yesterday played pro clubs for the first time, so it'll be like pretty much maybe for next 3-4 weeks I just do a bit of pro clubs on stream. Obviously the biggest problem at this like stage of FIFA in terms of the content I want to do again in FIFA 23 is the team reviews, because at this stage there's not really much point reviewing people's teams, because everyone pretty much has guaranteed end game teams. And even if someone with a road to glory, a fresh road to glory, come along and being like, oh, have a look at my team, can you give me some input? Literally my input can only really be, go on, open up an 85 plus pack. You'll probably get some improvements from there. Do some of these SBCs. Like, it's pretty much stagnant to what I can really say. And even like when it comes to rating people's teams, because everyone's got end game teams, it's literally like 9.3, 9.5, 9.4. So can't really do that. But but in terms of like maybe doing like budget build a face off and stuff, you can still do that no matter what time of the year it is, realistically, because there's always new players to do it around and stuff. So I haven't really got much problem with like worrying about keeping things fresh. It's just making sure to stay motivated to want to release the content. That's probably more the big issue when it comes to creating content more than anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say since I became a content creator, it's become a lot harder to stay on the game until the very last minute. Like, I know FIFA 15 is a great example of a year that I was invested till the last minute. The last team of the week came out, and I bought the new Informed Geordie Alba and was using it in my team as if we were still in, say, probably like mid-June or something. Like, I was still heavily invested at that point in FIFA. But what I'd say is other game modes. So Pro Clubs is my main release now, in terms of I'll play Pro Clubs with, say, Lind, who featured on the podcast, and that's fine. It's something that still keeps me involved with FIFA, still keeps me invested and interested.
Yeah.
But another thing that I always did and always still do is make stupid, wacky hybrids and try and make them work. Gonna be a bit more difficult next year, considering obviously the chemistry changes and stuff like that. But if anything, it means you can just use random cards and they won't get the boost, but they'll still perform to stats. But yeah, I'll just make something really random and go, yeah, Joe, I want to use this guy, and then build a team around him. Like mid-year this year, I did the Ghanaian Weekend League team because I packed SCN. I'll do stuff like that all the time. You get all these fresh cards coming out and all these cards that you've looked at all year and gone, oh, I wouldn't mind trying that. Cards have come so cheap, you can just, even if you have 500k, you can try practically most cards at this point and just enjoy them for what they are at face value. So that's what I would do, is normally try and not play the same team each time. Like, go grab a card you've not used before. Even cards that don't make sense. Down the years, famously, I would use Fellaini at striker whenever you got a special card. That's what I love doing. Stupid things like that. They're what sort of keep you, because at that point, you're using a stupid team. If you win, great. If you lose, oh no. You're not taking it too seriously, but you're having a laugh of it. Like, if it works off, brilliant. And it's stuff like that I wish that I brought more into my content creation itself. Like, there's times when I've done stupid things like that, and that's great, but I wish I did it more often.
Yeah, I see what you mean, like not doing it just because it's at the end of the game cycle.
Yeah, so that's what I'd do throughout the year. It wouldn't even be something that I've gone, oh, that's a great idea. I'd just look at a new card and go, that looks like some average card. Like, it's exactly why I made the review on my channel, like in October, November, going, Informed Tadic, non-meta player review. That's the kind of thing that I would love to do, is just take a card no one would think's usable, and then just take that for a spin, just to have a bit of have a good maybe hour or two, enjoy yourself with that card.
Yeah.
Then suddenly you see next team of the week. That's why I still value team of the weeks. As much as everyone hates team of the weeks and thinks it's pointless borderline at this point, apart from fodder, I see it as just some random guy that gets an inform, and I go, oh, go on, Em. Like when you see the full Japanese team or something like that, where you've got like the Japanese right back with 95 pace and Ito getting a card and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's those sort of teams that make me enjoy the game, not the Prem sweat teams. And maybe that's why I enjoyed Andre Silva so much, because it's a card no one uses, and you manage to get appreciation out of it. Like, you know, it's not the best, and you could probably do better, but you end up enjoying it more, rather than just being some meta slave. You just take the game at your own face value and enjoy it for what it is.
And the thing where that sort of falls in with content creation, isn't it, is that obviously ultimately, as well as doing something that we enjoy, the part of the enjoyment comes from getting the views. And certain things get views and certain things don't get views. And like Luke's alluded to, like certain niche things and that, you know, you just know people aren't going to be interested in watching. They want to see that big SBC player that week, or they want to see that big promo player, or they want to see that big team of the week player. And that is just kind of where most of the content goes towards. But if everybody's doing it, you fall into losing, like, into the ether of that particular category, and then you get lost in the ocean of content creators that have loads more followers and subscribers. At this point, feel sorry for us. Go and subscribe to our channel and all our individual platforms. But also,
Shameless.
but also, if you don't go with that and you go on the thing on your own, you also then struggle to target like that niche market that wants to see that. So there's no kind of like middle ground to be able to sort of get into to kind of balance that out. But as long as what I think is important, and this is like to anybody who's listening to this who does any form of content creation, whether you're going at it to try and do it as a job, whether you're doing it as a hobby, or whether you're doing it with some hope that maybe one day something will come of it, okay, which is the category I would put me in. I have my job, I have a mortgage, I have all that stuff which I do, and then this is something I enjoy doing that hopefully may turn into something else. You've got to enjoy it. That is the main thing. You've got to enjoy what you're doing. If you don't enjoy what you're doing, and you're doing it for the views, or you're doing it for to try and make money, and that is the only sole reason you're doing it, you won't get there. You have to be able to enjoy what you're doing and just enjoy being creative with a game. We know there's flaws in this game. There's flaws in Ultimate Team's gameplay, let alone obviously they mess up loads of things throughout the year, anything as well. So just enjoy it and try and make the best of the platform that you're playing on, whether it is FIFA. It might not even be FIFA, obviously. I imagine most people listening to this are playing Ultimate Team, but yeah, make sure just whatever you're doing that you're enjoying it, and then that will come across as well.
Yeah. And I think with cross-platform next year, it just gives another avenue for creativity.
Exactly.
Yep.
So you might see another Kit SBC review from me next year.
Exactly.
That actually did surprisingly well. That got 1.4k views. Like, I don't know how. Maybe I should do more stupid things like that. Who knows? Which
is great, isn't it? Because it's something we joked about, and then literally look how it turned out. And it's like me and Mers talking now. Like, so we're both. I don't think this is going to be a spoiler, but spoiler alert if it is. We both now have Prime Moments R9, and we're talking about doing a video that probably has been done by so many creators, but when do we find ourselves in this position, Mers? How often? That we've both packed this kind of player FIFA. Right at the end of FIFA. Exactly. This is the only chance or opportunity we've got to do it, so we'll go and do it. It's not about the views, it's about the fact that we've both packed this player, we've got a chance to be able to do it, and we're going to go and do a video on him, and that's just how it is. Likewise, I've also just managed to recently pack Ginola, so I've said to Luke, hey, let's go do Ginola. A lot of people have already done that video, but we'll do it because it's fun.
People have done that video on my account.
They've done that video. They've done that using
mine
your
is
actual
an AJ
Ginola.
free endorsed. Mine is an AJ free endorsed Ginola. Like,
exactly, and I don't need any
risk.
Extra help to be pumped by you without it already being clocked up a few goals himself anyway. But yeah, that is it. Like, we're just doing this now because we're at this point in the game where we've got these good cards. We can now build good teams and have fun with them. Whereas months ago down the line, we don't have 3 or 4 million in the account. We don't pump loads of money into FIFA points because we're not earning from it. So we can't suddenly just go and deplete our bank balance to go and get teams, and without being like Luke and packing Vieira and that providing you with millions of coins or something like that, 6 mil, then you can't go and do videos on those. And trust me, like, even if you do, EA tax dwindles that away very, very quickly as well. So don't ever underestimate that when it comes to content creators. I've heard of people having well in their tens of millions and it being depleted by EA tax very, very quickly. But we will call it there. Thank you ever so much for your questions this week. Thank you to Elmo. Thank you to the podcast guys. We're going to be in touch with you potentially about a crossover collaboration. You never know if you are listening to this, so maybe we'll have an FSB meets or something like that. And also thank you to GH again for submitting your question about children's cartoons. We do appreciate that. As always, we've been the FSB Creators, another episode of the Free for Tears podcast. Extra time. Don't forget to go and check out the episode we did earlier in the week. Check out our YouTube channel, all our own socials. Subscribe and like everything that we've provided and all that good stuff. Thank you ever so much for tuning in.
Peace out, guys.
Bye.